You know, we all think we have a pretty good handle on what violence is, right? A punch, a bomb, a riot. It seems obvious. But what if the most dangerous kind of violence is the kind we don't even see?
Well, this is where the philosopher Slavoj Žižek steps in, and he forces us to confront a really tough question. What if all our outrage, all our condemnation of the violence we see on the news, what if it's just a way for us to ignore something running much, much deeper?
And right there, that's the absolute heart of Žižek's whole argument. This idea that our obsession with the big, flashy, spectacular acts of violence, well, it might just be a clever trick, a distraction, keeping our eyes off a constant, grinding violence that we actually permit every single day. So let's really dig into this.
All right, so first up, the violence we see. Žižek calls this subjective violence, and it's all about the disruption of what we think of as normal.
So, this is the stuff we all recognize instantly, right? An act of terror, a violent crime, a riot. It's the kind of violence where you can point your finger and say, that's the bad guy. It feels like a clear break from the peace, an eruption that shatters our sense of a normal, stable world. It's the villain, the victim, it's all laid out for us.
Okay, but now for the other side of the coin, the violence we don't. And this is what he calls objective violence, or the violence of normalcy itself. And this, folks, is where Žižek just completely flips the script.
See, this objective violence isn't an event you see on TV. It's more like the background noise of our lives. It's the invisible systemic pressure built right into our social and economic systems. It's the damage that's done when the machine is running perfectly. It's the normal that we just accept without a second thought.
So, when you put them side by side, you start to see it. Subjective violence is the shocking disruption. Objective violence is the quiet hum of normalcy. One is visible, the other is structural. And here's the really mind-bending part. We only notice the subjective stuff because we accept the objective, systemic stuff as the baseline. That zero level of peace we're always trying to get back to. Žižek argues that it's actually violent in itself.
Yeah, Žižek puts it perfectly. He compares systemic violence to dark matter in physics. You can't see it, but you have to account for it to make sense of everything else. And that's his point exactly. Those explosions of subjective violence, the riots, the crime, they seem irrational to us, but they're not. They're just the symptoms, the cracks appearing on the surface, from all that invisible pressure building up underneath. Okay, this leads us to a really tricky place. The humanitarian's hypocrisy, or as the subtitle says, fighting violence with violence. And believe me, this is where his argument starts to get really, really uncomfortable for a lot of people. You know the type, right? The mantras of the modern do-gooder. Be caring. Be socially responsible. Change the world. We're not just selling things. It's the billionaire philanthropist, the socially conscious CEO, the people who seem to be fighting for all the right causes. Žižek has a very specific and pretty provocative name for this figure, the liberal communist. And here's the massive problem he sees. These are the very people who are agents of that structural objective violence. They might be fighting the effects of the system, donating to fix poverty or whatever, but their own success, their own way of operating, actually reinforces the very system that creates those problems to begin with. It's a vicious cycle.
And his metaphor for this is just devastatingly brilliant. He says it's like an ad that says, "Do you have constipation? Eat more of this chocolate." The cure they're selling you is literally the cause of the problem. They offer these little fixes that make us feel better, that patch things up just enough so the underlying violent system can just keep on humming along.
So, where does that leave us? If even trying to do good can be part of the problem, what on earth are we supposed to do? This brings us to his next big idea, the courage to do nothing. Basically, resisting that frantic urge to always do something.
And I know what you're thinking, because it's what everyone thinks. Wait, so you mean we should do nothing? Just sit here and wait while things get worse? It sounds like a total cop-out, right? Just an excuse to be lazy and apathetic?
And Žižek's answer to that is, yes, precisely that. But hold on, it's not about apathy. For him, this doing nothing is a powerful, active choice. It's a strategic retreat. It's about refusing to jump in with some half-baked, feel-good solution that doesn't actually solve anything. It's about having the courage to stop, step back, and actually think.
He uses this old Soviet joke to explain it. Lenin is asked if he prefers to have a wife or a mistress. He says, both. Why? So I can tell my wife I'm with my mistress,
tell my mistress I'm with my wife, and then I can sneak off to a solitary place to learn, and learn. The point isn't about cheating, obviously. It's about finding that hidden space to think, away from the endless pressure to just act without thinking.
And this all builds to the final and maybe the most piercing point of all, the interrogation of the good. He essentially turns the camera around and points it right at us, asking a very simple, very uncomfortable question. Are you a good person?
He pulls out this absolutely chilling poem by Bertolt Brecht. It's just brutal, isn't it? The point is that all your good qualities don't mean a thing if the system you're serving is fundamentally violent. You can be the kindest person in the world, but a good bullet fired from a good gun for a good cause, well, it still kills someone just the same.
And the interrogation continues with these questions from Brecht. You're brave? Against whom? You're wise? For whom? And that's really the final challenge Žižek leaves us with. It's not enough to just be a good person. We're forced to ask a much harder question. In a world built on this invisible, systemic violence, whose advantages are we really considering? Who or what does our goodness actually serve?